Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to this week's solo episode of Talks with Julia, where we focus on topics that can help you to grow from both a personal and professional standpoint at work. So, if this is your first time joining or tuning in, I am your host, Julia Rock. I am the CEO and head career coach at Rock Career Development. Now, for tonight's conversation, it may not be the most lighthearted discussion, but it's really important for us to have this discussion because it helps to create the right kind of work environment. It creates the right spaces for us to do our best work in the workplace where we're feeling the most productive and the most fulfilled. When we think about it, many of us may have found ourselves in situations where we're dealing with difficult work environments, but really it's a difficult boss that's making everything else seem a lot more stressful, a lot more overwhelming, and it's hard for us to navigate those spaces. And if you've watched one of my prior live streams, I've talked a little bit about the fact that the relationship that you have with your boss or with your manager is the single most important relationship that you will have at your organization. So no matter how much you foster and build your network and nurture relationships, the single most important relationship that you will have at work is the one that you have with your direct supervisor. That person is able to speak up on your behalf and to your benefit. They can also speak on your behalf to your detriment because they may be in rooms and in situations where you are not even invited, simply because the conversations are happening at a higher level in the organization. And so it's so important to have a good working relationship with your supervisor. But tonight's discussion is how do we deal with it, or what do we do when those relationships are not positive, when they're not working well, where they're not mutually beneficial, and things are difficult and tough to manage. And if you have thoughts or concerns as we're going through tonight's conversation, I would love for you to leave a comment. Even if we don't get to it during the live recording, I'll be sure to make sure that I respond afterwards as well. And so I wanted to hop in tonight and talk about a few of the action steps that you can take when you're having this difficult relationship with your boss. I have been someone who has had difficult working relationships with my management. And as I said earlier, it can make it just tough for you to go to work in the first place because that's the person who's driving your work assignments. That's the person who's asking you questions. That's the person who's checking in on you. And so having that kind of negative or difficult or tough interaction makes everything else just much, much harder to deal with at work. So let's hop into the few action steps for this evening. So when you're dealing with a difficult boss, the first step is for you to actually take a step back. Take a step back. And what do I really mean by that? You want to assess what is the actual problem area. It's easy to say, well, hey, that my boss and I just don't get along or we don't see eye to eye. But like, let's unpack that a little bit. And when you're doing that step back, that's what's really critical. Is it just that the person is putting a lot of work on you and they're not understanding? Are they not listening to you so that you're bringing ideas forward and it feels like they're falling on deaf ears? Are they actually mistreating you or disrespecting you in some way? That's a step above, just having some disagreement or misalignment on work items. If you're truly being mistreated or disrespected in some way. And as you look at all of those things, like what is the biggest area of disconnect? And while you're taking that step back, you should also be looking around, especially if you're not your supervisor's only direct report. Look around at the rest of the team. Are other people having this same type of challenge? Because is it that you and your boss just don't see eye to eye, or is this person's personality? Is this their MO where they're difficult and everyone is experiencing the same thing? And that can help you to figure out kind of what next step you need to take. Because if the person is having just a disconnect with you and they seem like they're working well or at least in a tolerable fashion with everyone else, that may mean that there's something in particular with your working relationship that needs attention versus that this is someone's overarching personality and everyone's dealing with the same thing. And I don't live in a world of utopia. I do know that there are some people out there in the workplace who are just truly difficult, who are make life tough on everyone who works for them, everyone who works around them. That is, that's a situation that is more difficult to deal with versus just you and the other person seemingly being misaligned. The next item is for you to be empathetic. And before you run to the comments and you're ready to type and say, what are you talking about? My boss is making my life hell. Why do I need to be empathetic? Hear me out. What happens sometimes for many bosses is that they are getting pressure from different directions above them, from the side, from peers, they're getting a lot of pressure. And many of them may not be fully equipped or know how to navigate that. Now, that's not to make an excuse on anyone's behalf. We're all professionals in the workplace, but it can help give you some insight as to why this person may be reacting to you a certain way, may be speaking to you in some way, or just seemingly like they're more short than they used to be. And because it's always easy for us to see things from our own point of view, right? We're dealing with it like, hey, I'm feeling frustrated. I'm having challenges as a result of this. I don't feel like I'm being productive enough. I. But if you're in this working relationship with your boss, it's important to put on that other lens to see where is this person coming from and where could there be things that are driving them to feel this way, to react this way, to respond to you in this way. Again, it's not an excuse for anyone's behavior, but it provides a little bit of an explanation and provides some sort of understanding so that you can maybe take the next step forward in resolving that conflict. And so after you've taken that step back and you're thinking about how you can best be empathetic to put yourself in the other person's shoes, you also want to think about, is now a good time for you to chat with your mentor? And why do I mention talking to someone else? Again, this is a situation that you're experiencing. But if this mentor is more senior, they can provide some insight as to how to best approach even a conversation with your manager about how things are going and why things are seemingly so difficult. In addition to that, here's a bit of a cheat code. If you have a mentor who is within your organization in your direct line, or at least somewhat adjacent, they may be able to provide you with some additional perspective as to what's happening in your organization. And obviously, they may not be able to tell you everything, but they're at least able to provide you with some context as this may be why your boss is stressed. This may be why they're having these concerns, because there are all these other things that are working around them that they're trying to figure out how to navigate because someone else just dropped this bomb on them. So talking to your mentor can have multiple ways to provide you with some value. And so you want to be able to soak up that insight and get that kind of additional level of perspective. Now, if you have multiple mentors, that's even better, because that way you can maybe compare some of the approaches that you're being given, maybe just take the best bits from what you hear. Or if one person doesn't have insight about what's going on into the organization, it may be that your next mentor just might. So if you can leverage multiple people, get different perspectives as to how to approach the conversation, that can help, as well as getting even additional context around what all is happening in the organization. Is my boss dealing with something that I don't know about? And again, they may not be able to give you all the insight or give you all the details around what's happening, but they can at least give you some flavor so that you may be able to say, okay, so I kind of get why my boss is reacting this way. So after you've been able to have that conversation with your mentor, now it's time for you to gear up for that conversation with your supervisor. It's important to get out in front of any sort of disconnect, discord, conflict with your supervisor versus letting it fester and letting things get worse. And one of the things that I will say when it comes to this discussion is for you to be open and honest and transparent while remaining professional, but it's critical for you to remain open and honest and transparent. The reason for this is there's no way for them to actually fix what's going on or see what's happening if you are not being open and honest and transparent with them. If you're just like, oh, well, I feel like the work is, I'm having an issue with the work and maybe I don't understand what you're saying. When you really mean, hey, I feel like we're misaligned, or I feel like we're having, we're having more conflict than we used to, whatever wording you want to use, it's important for you to be open, honest, and transparent, because that's where they can actually take some action step, or make a change or make a shift or share what they're feeling or share what they're seeing from you. And then you can actually come to a place of resolving the conflict in a more meaningful way. But before you get to that discussion, I would highly recommend taking the time to get prepared. And what I mean by getting prepared is, do you have clear examples as to where things have become difficult between the two of you? So, for example, perhaps you and your manager, it wasn't always this bad. Perhaps things had been progressing in a decent way, and you had at least a tolerable relationship. Maybe it wasn't the best, but at least things were working okay. And then you've seen over time that things have become a lot different, where the relationship has seemingly gone off the rails. Things are, it's more difficult to speak to one another. The tones have changed. If you can highlight specific examples, that may allow your supervisor to help pinpoint, what has happened to them, or in their work. Or they can say, hey, this is what I noticed from you, and I probably should have brought this forward before. So coming forward with specific examples will be really productive for you to have, for the discussion to really go in a direction where you can actually action something. And one thing I do want to add to that, as you're preparing those examples, I know it's going to be hard, but you have to do your best to stay as objective and as calm as possible. I know that if the person is frustrating you and causing you problems, it's going to be easy for you to get worked up. But when you're worked up, the other person may get worked up, and now we're both worked up in this conversation and nothing is fully being resolved. So you want to make sure that if, as much as possible, that you prepare yourself to stay as objective and as calm as possible. Stick to the facts whenever possible, and stick to the results and the outcomes that have resulted from this type of behavior. It may be that your supervisor or your manager is in their own little bubble, and they're not realizing the impact that their actions are having on you or the rest of the team or the work product that you're supposed to be delivering. And so you bringing that objective perspective and being very clear about the results and outcomes that are being impacted, that can bring a more effective and productive lens to the conversation versus just this back and forth of emotion where everybody's frustrated. And I want to go back to the importance of being honest and transparent. Reflecting on my own career, I know that there have been times where I have had a difficult boss and I haven't really said everything that I probably should have said, and I can admit that. And I ended up internalizing a lot of what I was feeling because nothing was changing at work. And so I was dealing internally with that stress. And so the importance of being open and honest is that it not only helps things to change at work, it also allows you to get certain things off your chest in a professional way so that you're not bottling it up and you're not internalizing everything. Even if you're being objective, you can still share, hey, this is the impact that your actions have had on me, on the group. This is the amount of additional work that I've now had to do because we haven't been able to find this common ground or agree on action steps or even discuss this matter. So getting it out of your system will also be beneficial for both your physical and mental health. Don't let those things stay bottled up inside. And one other thing that I wanted to mention here, and we alluded to it earlier, was about them getting pressure from somewhere else. Ask or try to understand if there's more that your boss can share about what's on their plate. It may be that they've been trying to juggle all these balls and keep them in the air. Meanwhile, they should probably have reached out for help or asked your opinion or asked your input or even just gotten the rest of the entire team involved, but they've been trying to do things on their own. So asking a question about what they're experiencing or what's on their plate can help to give you some line of sight into this is what they're dealing with. And then a follow-up question you can ask is, am I delivering what you need me to? It may be that you had aligned on priorities and expectations a while ago, but perhaps you haven't had that discussion more recently. And because this person is overwhelmed, they haven't been able to come back to sit down at the table with you to have this discussion. And so you bring it forward saying, hey, I know that I'm working on ABC, and I'm wondering if it's more important for me to help you in this area, or is there other things that I can provide support on? Do you have everything that you need from me? And I know it may seem like, okay, this is maybe being in some way deferent to your supervisor, but again, supervisors have a lot on their plate. They're dealing with a lot. They're coming from on high. People are reporting to them or asking them questions, and there's a lot of pressure, a lot of things coming from all sides. So having this open discussion about where else do you need support, that could be the open door to improving the interaction that you have. Your boss is getting the support, and also selfishly, this is going to help you from a performance perspective. If you've been able to manage your own activities, and then when your boss is dealing with stressful items or a tough project, and you've been able to step in and help, these are the things that you can bring up when it comes to your performance review, when it comes to the promotion discussion, because it shows that you're able to do above and beyond the meeting of expectations. You've been able to take work off a more senior person's plate and add additional value. So it's not just about serving your boss and resolving that conflict, even though that's what tonight's discussion is about. Selfishly, it also helps you when it comes time for performance reviews or for promotion discussions. And now kind of a segue, that was kind of a good segue to the next point about potentially finding common ground with your supervisor. And, that may stem from this original discussion that you're having with them. Are there areas that you and your boss kind of actually see eye to eye on? Are there things that you agree on, processes that you want to change, interactions with other teams that need to be improved? Is there a critical project that you and your boss want to take the same approach to? And just being honest, sometimes being able to commiserate on something like, man, this thing sucks. I know that sounds terrible to say, but sometimes being able to commiserate with someone can actually help to build a bond, as strange as that sounds. And no one's saying for you to be a kiss up or for you to be disingenuous or be inauthentic. But if there is an opportunity for you to find common ground with your supervisor, that can help things to simmer down just a little bit. So looking for those places where there might be some common ground, where you guys can see, like, the both of you can commiserate on something because it's like, man, this is a terrible idea. We would have done it a different way. No matter what it might be, finding that thread, that common thread between the two of you can really help things to, kind of bring them down, like I said, simmer them down and open up the space for you to have a different kind of conversation to improve the relationship. Now, if none of that is working, one thing that I want to share is for you to set clear boundaries. So if you have tried to have discussions, you've tried to find common ground, and it just seems like things are still difficult, it's important for you to set clear boundaries so that the person understands where you are coming from. It doesn't matter if someone is the leader in your organization. You do not have to stand for someone mistreating you or speaking negatively to you or whatever the case is. It's important for them to treat you as a professional. You don't always have to agree with your boss, and they don't always have to agree with you, but it's important for the relationship to remain respectful and professional. And this may be where you have to speak up for yourself and let that person know, this is what I will not accept. I'm happy to have a discussion with you. I'm happy to deliver on the milestones and the outcomes and the results that you're expecting from me, but I will not accept this kind of conversation. I will not accept this tone, because We're here for the same objective. And it may be that you have to remind your supervisor that it's not an us versus them, right? It's not that we're on different teams. You're on the same team seeking to achieve the same objectives for from a company perspective. Every company has strategic goals and objectives and desired outcomes that they're going after, and your organization or your supervisor should be working towards those same things, and that's what they should be instilling in all of the team members. So it may be that you have to bring them back down to earth to share, hey, I want the same thing that you want. I'm working hard to achieve the goals that you have deemed important. So us having this disconnect is not helping either of us get to that goal that we've discussed. And so, but it's always important for you to draw that clear line in the sand, set those clear boundaries so that they can see that you're willing to work hard, you're willing to deliver value, but you're not going to be mistreated or talked to in a negative or harsh way when it's not even necessary and they're not even maintaining professionalism. Now, I know this next one may be pretty hard, but you want to make sure that this is not impacting your work. And I know it's easier said than done, but you have to keep in mind that you are a true professional. No matter what else is happening around you, you are a true professional and you have a lot to offer your organization. So if you are letting this impact your work and your work product, it may impact how people see you and the value that you offer, which isn't fair. So don't let one individual cause you to fall off your game or not deliver your best work. If you have to take time away from the individual, you have to take a day or two to gather yourself, do whatever is necessary, but don't let this one person impact all of the value that you can create, all the opportunities that you deserve. You don't want to let this one person impact that. And so if you're thinking about, well, Julia, how do I really get there mentally if this person is treating me poorly? I will ask for you to think about it in a bigger picture fashion. If you're on a team, your boss is only one member on that team. You may have a ton of people who are around you who are needing your support, they're needing your expertise, they're needing your guidance. And if you are letting this one person impact what you can do, all of the people around you are not getting the value from you that they should be getting. And also you may not be getting the value because if you're too busy focused on this negative relationship, all the people on the team who want to help you, who want to collaborate with you, who want to help you build something or create greater value for the organization, they may not be able to get through because you're being prickly to everybody because of this one situation. So taking that step back and thinking about, hey, my boss is only one person. And yes, it's the most important relationship on the team, but for now, I'm still here. I'm still a member of the team. I still have a role to play here, and I can't let this one relationship take everything down with it. And then lastly, you want to assess if there are other career opportunities that may be available for you. Does your organization have another department where your skills can be leveraged and the potential you can be transferred? And I will say that you may have to take some additional measures here. Talk to your mentor, talk to sponsors if you have any. You may need to go to your boss's direct leadership. And you may be thinking, well, this seems kind of like, dangerous or risky behavior because there could be retaliation. But think of it this way. If you're already in a toxic situation and you've already tried different steps to improve the relationship and you're not being successful, things are already bad anyway. Why not take this shot that could offer you the opportunity to go and have a fresh start elsewhere where your skills can actually be leveraged? And one thing that I will say that can be helpful here is for you to try to do your research ahead of time to see what specific open roles are available so that you're not only trying to just get away from this boss, but also you're making a key career move for yourself that's aligned with your career goals that you may have set separately. So getting that additional career opportunity and shifting out of that group can serve two purposes. And so I want you to think about it as, yes, I'm having a difficult relationship with my boss, but I am not a tree. I can move. I do not have to sit and just let things happen to me. You are the CEO of your career. You are the architect. You are sitting in the driver's seat. And so, no matter what is happening around you, you have the power to take a step forward, to take a step out of the organization, whatever it might be. You retain the power. And if you keep that in mind, you won't allow things to just fester, and you just keep taking it. I can say, as someone who's been there and has taken mistreatment from leadership, I know that it's not fun. I know that it's stressful. I know that it impacts your mental health, your physical health. It can impact the relationships you have outside of work because it's taking you to a negative place. But if you put yourself back in the driver's seat, you take some of these action steps that I'm going to recap now, you take these action steps and implement them, you at least retain the power and you retain control versus just allowing the negative energy, the criticism, the mistreatment to keep happening, and you're just standing by. And so with that, let's quickly recap what are the 8 things that you can do right now if you're dealing with a difficult boss, a difficult manager. 1, take a step back to assess what's the actual problem area. Are you really dealing with mistreatment, or are they simply putting a lot of work on your desk, or is there some other disconnect to consider? Also, look around and look at your team. Are you the only person experiencing these kinds of problems with your leader, or is this truly how they treat everyone? Next, you want to be empathetic. I know it's easy to focus on me, what I'm experiencing, and you should always be your top priority. But thinking about a workplace relationship, you have to consider what the other person may be going through, and your supervisor may be under a lot of pressure that you don't even see right now. So you've got to think about, how can I put myself in their shoes? Next, take time to chat with your mentor. Get some perspective from someone who may be more senior, or who may have worked with this person before. Whatever the relationship with your mentor may be, have that conversation, because also, if they work in your organization, they can provide some insight or perspective as to what are other changes or shifts that are happening in the company that may be impacting your division and ultimately your supervisor. Next, you want to get prepared to go forward and have that conversation with your supervisor as early as possible. Take the time to prepare and get examples together, making sure that you can point to specific scenarios in which the relationship has become less than positive. But keep the discussion open and honest. Keep it to the facts, keep it transparent, but don't keep things bottled up. If you keep things bottled up, that will continue to impact your physical health, your mental health, because you're internalizing things that should be released and shared. And one of the additional things I mentioned here was, getting more perspective from your supervisor directly as to what they may be experiencing. We talked about the mentor, but asking your boss directly as to what are they working on, what's currently on their plate. Are the expectations that were set for your role previously, do they still make sense, or do you need to take on something additional and provide more support? One, that's going to help ease some of the burden on your boss's plate, but also set you up to have a more positive discussion when the performance review or the promotion discussion comes, because of all this additional work you may have taken on. Next, you want to make sure you're able to find some level of common ground with them. Are there projects that you and your boss want to approach the same way? Are there areas of improvement within your organization that you and your boss agree on? And, areas of efficiency, are there things that could change to make the workplace better, to make the work processes better? Are there things that you are aligning on? Or is it just something that you can commiserate on? Perhaps some announcement came out, or there's some change that's coming out that neither of you agree with. And maybe you have an opportunity to commiserate a little bit and just exchange ideas. And again, not wallowing in the negative, but perhaps you exchange ideas. Finding that type of common ground can help to create more productive discussions between the two of you. Again, not being a kiss up or disingenuous, but finding true common ground that you agree on and can have a meaningful discussion about. Next, we discussed setting clear boundaries. You do not have to stand for mistreatment, and it's up to you to speak up for yourself and to stand up for yourself. Even if the person is more senior, that they're still a professional just like you. They're still a human being just like you. And so you don't have to accept someone treating you in a negative or harsh way, and especially if they're being unprofessional and disrespectful. Next, we said to make sure that this doesn't impact your work. You have a lot of value to add to your organization, and you don't want that in any way, slighted because of this other relationship. So sticking to your deadlines and your milestones and getting your work done, even in spite of this, is key to making sure that you continue on the right career path for yourself and not letting yourself be negatively impacted by this one individual. And then lastly, assessing whether or not there are career opportunities for you elsewhere within the organization, even before you consider leaving or going externally. Is there another department that could use your skills? Is there a project that could use your skills? And this may be an opportunity for you to do two things. One, get away from this boss that's negative and that you're not able to find that healthy working relationship with, but also it allows you to make a strategic career move that's going to set you up to achieve the career goals that you've set for yourself. And so with that, if you've decided to stay to the end of tonight's conversation, I want to say thank you. And before I go, I wanted to quickly share with you that my Pivot one-on-one coaching program, the doors are open. If you haven't heard about Pivot, this is an 8-week coaching program where you're working directly with me and you're getting the advice you need on everything from job search strategy, networking, personal development, personal branding, salary negotiation, and the list goes on. You also get a fully rewritten resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile. So all of that comes within my coaching program. And so you have that direct access so that you can find the career transition and the career opportunities that you're looking for. So if you're feeling stuck in your career right now, you're tired of dealing with the negative environment, you're tired of being in a place that's no longer serving you, I would love for you to DM me the word pivot or comment the word pivot on the platform that you're watching right now. And so that we can talk and I can see how we can work together and move your career forward in the right direction. And so with that, I want to say thank you again for watching. We'll be back on Thursday with our interview episode at 7:30 p.m. Central. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for tuning in.